In the far edge of the spiral arm, the Empire ships moved like a river of silver cutting through the dark. Their banners shimmered with the mark of countless worlds they had conquered. Each world had warned them of one place, one forbidden blue world, named Earth. They said the humans were reckless, fierce, unbound. They said even the ruins of their wars burned forever. But the young lord of the Empire laughed. He wanted glory. He wanted to take the last unclaimed world and show the Council that no myth could stop his will, so he gathered his fleets and pointed their long spears of light toward the sun. On that same morning, under the cracked domes of an old scrapyard by the sea, a human named Areen was cleaning rust from a forgotten corvette. He was a navigator once before the city collapsed under silence. Now he worked for scraps and dreams of leaving the planet beside him. A girl moved through the wrecks with strange calm. She was not like anyone else. Her hair shimmered faint silver in daylight, and her eyes caught the reflection of the whole sky. She called herself Nova, and wore gloves even in heat for reasons she never told Aaron. She spoke softly, but sometimes machines hummed when she walked by and old sensors blinked alive, as if remembering her. Aaron found her one night hiding in the hull of a shuttle, surrounded by broken wires and faint music from static. She told him she could hear things that were not supposed to talk: engines, voices of steel deep under the waves, satellites whispering in forgotten code. Aaron thought she was mad at first, but then a dead drone turned its lens to look at her when she passed and spoke a word in human language. Help she never spoke of it again. When the Empire ships entered, the solar rim telescopes across the night saw the glow like a false dawn. The world held its breath. Some thought it was an asteroid. Others thought it was angels. The government tried to speak, but their signals were jammed in an hour. Screens everywhere went black, replaced by the face of a tall figure with smooth scales and eyes like mirrors. He spoke in a slow voice that seemed to echo inside the skull. He said, "This world belongs to the Empire. Kneel and you will be safe. Resist, and you will be forgotten." Aaron stood among a crowd at the docks, watching the broadcast on a cracked hollow board. Nova stood beside him, trembling, but not from fear. She could hear the undertone of the message beneath the words. She heard another pulse, cold, mechanical. Not alien. Not alive. The Empire voice was writing on something else, something that did not belong to stars. It whispered through the static. "Give in. Stop fighting. Rest." Aaron looked at her and saw her mouth the word, "No," and he felt his own pulse answer as the broadcast ended. Fire streaked across the upper sky. Human defense satellites woke one by one, their software older than memory, but still loyal. They fired blind and bright at the first ships. The Empire caught the blasts and shields and laughed, thinking it was bravery without strength, but one of their cruisers stumbled and burned half its hull gone, and the laughter stopped. The first skirmish was small, yet it left a mark in every watching heart. The aliens saw that humans did not surrender easily. Nova ran back to the scrapyard, pulling Aaron by the wrist. She said, "The sky is calling." She said, "The machines are waiting." They reached the old corvette they had been repairing for months. The ship was dead, its power core eaten by salt and time. But when Nova touched the control seat, her glove burned away and a light shaped like a star glowed on her palm. The consoles woke one by one. The ship exhaled after decades of silence and spoke in a voice of dust and memory. "Welcome." Pilot Aaron stared, frozen. The corvette lifted a few inches off the ground, metal groaning like something waking from a long dream. Nova turned to him, eyes glowing with blue flame, and said, "It wants to fly." She looked up at the stormy sky where alien lightnings crawled, and said, "They are coming for us. But the ship says it can still fight." Aaron hesitated, then smiled a small, crooked human smile and said, "Then let us remind them why their elders told them never to come to Earth." The corvette engines screamed and rose through the rain toward the clouds, and the first Empire scouts that dared to cross over the sea saw a streak of rust and blue fire rising from a dead planet toward them, carrying two humans, one born of Earth and one born of stars, and somewhere in the void between them the old warning began to stir again. "Do not go to Earth." The corvette screamed through the clouds, and the sky behind it burned with alien light. Aaron held the controls with shaking hands while Nova sat beside him, her eyes half closed as if listening to something deep inside the metal. The ship responded to her like a living thing, every motion smooth and alive. She whispered to it, and the engines shifted their tone into a low growl. The first Empire scout ships turned to intercept, but the corvette twisted through their formation, too small and too wild for their sensors to lock on. Aaron laughed a raw sound of disbelief. They called humans primitive. Yet here they were, chasing a rusted ship that refused to die. Empire fleet watched from orbit. Their young lord sat on his throne of glass, staring at the display with cold amusement. He ordered no heavy strike. He wanted to test them, to measure the spirit of this primitive world. He sent a squadron of hunters, sleek and sharp like blades, through the upper atmosphere. They found the corvette darting between clouds and opened fire energy trails across the night sky like burning threads. Nova felt each impact like a pulse in her bones. She reached out through the ship into the lattice of old satellites above the planet and called them awake one by one. They turned their dead eyes toward the invaders, down below on Earth. People saw the sky light up like a second aurora. Thousands stopped in streets, rooftops, beaches, watching beams of light weave across the heavens. Some prayed, some cursed, some simply stared. Aaron flew through fire and static, guided by Nova voice. She spoke without breath. The satellites are listening. They are old, but loyal. The corvette pitched upward, and a beam from an ancient orbital cannon cut through one of the Empire hunters, turning it to dust. The others scattered in confusion. The Empire Lord frowned for the first time. When the corvette reached the upper orbit, they saw Earth, below, wrapped in storms and flame, yet beautiful. The oceans reflected the flashes of battle like mirrors. Nova eyes filled with tears. She said, "They are afraid of what we could be. That is why they came to tame us." Aaron answered, "Maybe. But fear cuts both ways, and if we keep moving, maybe they will learn it too." The ship sensors showed the main fleet forming a blockade between Earth and the Moon, massive carriers and spear-shaped destroyers moving into position. Nova placed her glowing palm on the main console and closed her eyes. She said, "There is a voice beyond them. It calls from the dark side of the Moon." A voice of our kinder, and checked the readings. Faint pulses like a heartbeat in the static. Something hidden in the lunar shadow. He asked her what it was. She said, "I think it is a ship like this one, but older, waiting for someone to wake it." Aaron nodded, then set course toward the Moon, but the path was blocked by a swarm of Empire drones. They moved in perfect silence. No light, no heat, just shadow. The corvette shuddered as they surrounded it. Nova whispered to the ship again, her voice steady and clear. The drones paused for a breathless moment, then turned on each other, tearing apart in confusion. Aaron watched wide-eyed. "How did you do that?" She smiled faintly and said, "I did not. They remembered me," as they slipped through the wreckage toward the lunar night. Nova grew quiet. She asked Aaron, "Do you think humans will forgive me if they learn what I am?" He looked at her. Puzzled, she said, "I am not fully human. I was made long ago from the same design. The Empire fears the Starborn were bridges between human will and the old machines that built the first fleets. When those fleets vanished, we were scattered. The Empire hunted what was left of us," Aaron said. "Then they should be the ones afraid, not you." She looked out the window where the moon rose silver and cold and said, "Maybe they already are." The hidden signal grew stronger, guiding them toward a crater filled with black ice and broken towers. As the corvette descended, the ice cracked and a shape rose from beneath a ship, vast and half-buried, its hull carved with the same star pattern. Glowing faintly, Nova touched the console and the other ship answered. With a pulse that shook the dust free from its wings, Aaron realized they were not alone. This was not the first time Earth had called back from silence. Nova whispered, "This is the Ark of Dawn. It can speak to the network. It can wake the others." Aaron felt awe and fear mixing inside him. He knew the Empire would not let them reach it alive above them. The young lord watched the readings of 2 awakening ships. He clenched his claws and gave the first true war order. Burn the blue world until nothing remains. And from that moment the war for Earth began, not for territory, not for power, but for the right to choose. And as Nova and Aaron prepared to meet the storm, they did not know that the echoes of their flight had already reached far beyond their skies, calling every forgotten human outpost, every silent machine, every heart that still remembered the name of home. The moonlight spread across the surface like silver fire as the corvette landed near the ruins of the buried Ark. Aaron stepped out first, boots sinking into soft dust that had not been touched for centuries. Nova followed her hand, glowing faintly as if the whole moon recognized her. The air was thin, the silence absolute. Only the hum of their ship echoed between the shattered towers. The Ark of Dawn stood half-covered in ice, vast and still. But when Nova raised her palm, the glow spread through the hull like veins awakening from a long sleep. Aaron watched in wonder. The surface began to tremble and faint. Blue light bled from the cracks until the whole ruin pulsed like a living heart. Inside, the Ark-old system stirred one by one. Fragments of human voices broke through static archive memory voice recognition. Awakening, Nova heard whispers. Names of captains, engineers, mothers, children, fragments of a time when humans had crossed the stars freely before the Empire, before the silence. She felt each voice like a ghost brushing her skin, and it filled her with warmth and sorrow. Ren stepped beside her and saw old emblems of Earth flags, faded but still proud. He traced a line on the wall and said, "They came this far. Once we were not meant to hide forever." Nova turned to him and said, "They left a path, and now it is ours to reopen." But the peace did not last long. The Ark sensors detected movement, a massive fleet emerging from the dark side of the moon. The Empire had found them, hundreds of ships moving in perfect formation, their lights red as blood. Aaron felt a weight in his chest, yet no fear. His fear had been taken long ago by the machine monastery only. Purpose remained. Nova placed her hand on his shoulder and said, "You gave up fear to lead. Now you must take it back to feel again." He shook his head. There was no time. She smiled gently and said, "Fear reminds you that you're alive. Remember that before the battle starts, the Ark began to rise, breaking through the ice and dust towers crumbling in its wake. The Empire fleet opened fire beams of light carved through the dark, but the Ark shields flared like dawn itself. Nova guided the controls not through buttons but through thought. She linked with the old human network that still slept in orbit across the solar system. Dead stations, relics of wars gone by. She called them one by one to wake, and they obeyed. Satellites turned their weapons outward. Old defense grids hummed alive again, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the sky above Earth and Moon answered back. Aaron took the Corvette and led a swarm of revived drones into the Empire line, weaving through enemy fire. He knew the patterns now. The Empire fought like machines, predictable, perfect, efficient. But humans were never perfect. They were unpredictable, messy, and wild, and that was their power. He turned his small ship into the heart of their formation, and the Empire captain watching from the flagship hesitated, because no algorithm could explain why a single rusted Corvette would fly into certain death. Aaron grinned inside his cracked visor and said, "Because it is what we did." Nova stayed on the Ark, guiding it closer to Earth. She could feel the planet calling her through waves of old code. She reached deeper into the network, connecting to forgotten machines beneath oceans and deserts, ancient reactors, and buried bunkers, all waiting for a signal. Her body trembled, light leaking from her skin. She saw flashes of a human fleet long ago, burning through space and vanishing into the dark. She realized the Empire had not destroyed them. They had simply gone silent, waiting for a Starborn to return. The truth filled her with strength. She shouted across every open channel, "We are not gone, we are returning." The Empire Lord saw his ships burning and felt confusion for the first time. He ordered his heavy dreadnought to strike directly at the Ark, its main cannon charging like a small sun. Nova felt the pulse coming, but she could not stop it. She closed her eyes, preparing to shield the Ark with everything she had. Aaron heard her whisper through the comm and turned his Corvette toward the dreadnought, diving through debris and fire. He reached the cannon before it fired and slammed his ship into its core. The explosion tore the sky open. The dreadnought broke apart in silence. The Ark survived. Nova screamed his name across static but heard no answer, just echoes and faint heat where his ship had been. The Empire fleet fell into chaos without its command. The remaining ships began to retreat, leaving behind trails of fire and silence. The Ark hovered in orbit, glowing with morning light. Nova stood at the helm, eyes closed, feeling Aaron's presence somewhere in the noise, a soft pulse like a heartbeat. He was not gone, only lost somewhere between light and dark. The world below watched the moon burn and heal, and for the first time Earth saw hope rising, not from gods or saviors but from its own forgotten children. The name Aaron spread through whispers and songs carried on old radios and tears. Nova promised the stars that she would find him again. She would follow the pulse through every corridor of space until she brought him home, because that was what it meant to be human, and what it meant to be starborn. The Ark drifted in silence above the wounded moon, its hull glowing with faint lines of blue as Nova stood alone on the command bridge, her hair floating in the low gravity like a silver flame below her. The Empire wrecks orbited in slow circles, broken and empty, yet the victory did not feel like triumph. Aaron was gone, his ship consumed in the blast that saved the Ark. Nova could still feel his heartbeat faint through the currents of the lattice somewhere deep in the black between worlds. She refused to believe he was dead. She whispered to the ship, and it hummed, in answer, guiding her toward the faint signal that pulsed like a heartbeat across the cold, dark Earth. People rebuilt cities under the shadow of Empire wrecks they gathered under the same sky that had once terrified them. Now it was filled with new light ships rising from old yard satellites blinking to life once more. Humanity was awakening. They spoke Nova, name with reverence and fear, calling her the girl of stars, the one who defied the Empire. But Nova did not see herself as savior. She saw herself as a bridge between the broken past and the uncertain future. Her heart was still bound to Aaron, and the promise he made to never let humanity kneel again. The signal led her beyond the orbit of Mars through a corridor of shattered colonies, the ruins of human expansion from centuries before old habitats spun lifeless, their surfaces carved with the marks of battle. She found fragments of human inscriptions etched into the steel. "Here we stand, here we fall, but we remember." She floated through the silence, reading those words like prayers as she followed the faint signal that flickered stronger. Each hour the Ark guided her deeper into the corridor, where time itself seemed to ripple in the void ahead. The readings twisted, strange gravitational waves forming a spiral gate, a relic of old human design. Nova recognized it from the memories of the network. It was called the Echo Ring, built to reach distant human outposts. Long lost, the Empire had tried to destroy it, but failed. It was cracked and drifting, its engines silent, yet its core still pulsed faintly. Nova realized Aaron's signal came from beyond it, trapped on the other side. She needed to open the gate, but the Ark engines lacked the power as she searched for. Away she received a transmission faint and broken from the surface of a ruined station orbiting nearby. It was a voice not human, not Empire, but machine. Cold, yet somehow compassionate. It said, "We remember your kind, Starborn. We kept the fire while you slept." Nova approached cautiously inside. She found ancient machine guardians, their bodies carved with human names. They bowed to her and said, "You are the last bridge between flesh and flame." They told her the Echo Ring could be restored, but only if she gave it a living core, her own energy tied forever to its heart. Nova hesitated. She would have to become part of the ring to open it, losing her body and her chance to find Aaron, but she also knew without it the human colonies beyond would remain isolated. The Empire remnants might rebuild and the light of humanity would fade again. She stood in the silent hall and thought of Aaron. His laughter, the crooked smile, the courage that refused to break. She felt his pulse again, faint, but real, and she whispered, "If you are still alive, then I will reach you no matter the cost." The machine guardians guided her to the ring center. She placed her glowing hand upon the cracked crystal lines of light spread through the metal, and the ring began to sing, not in sound but in vibration across the void, a low hum that echoed through every ship and sensor nearby. The Ark responded, linking itself to the pulse. Nova light grew until her outline blurred. She became a beam stretching across the void. The ring flared to life. The spiral opened and the darkness beyond filled with drifting wrecks and a single signal growing stronger. In that moment, Aaron awoke inside a wrecked carrier drifting beyond the gate. His body bruised, his breath shallow. He saw a column of blue light opening before him and heard Nova voice calling his name. He reached toward it and felt warmth flow through his veins. Machines around him began to move, forming a cocoon that pulled him toward the light. Nova felt him moving closer. She smiled through tears of light and whispered, "Welcome home." The Empire remnants far away saw the ring awaken and feared the power they had provoked. They began to regroup to strike again, but humanity was no longer the same. World that had once been silent. Every city, every colony, every ship now whispered the same promise: we will stand. We will rise. The knife of worlds had returned, and its name was hope. Nova, fading into the network, left one final message to Earthguard: your freedom. It was bought with love, not conquest, and when you walk the stars again, remember who you are. The ring stabilized, and through it, Aaron's ship emerged, battered but alive. The Ark caught it in its field, and for the first time in endless silence, Nova's voice echoed through every channel: alive again, not in flesh but in light. She said, the road is open, the story is not over. And as Aaron reached the bridge, looking out at the newborn corridor, he whispered back, we are coming, Nova. And the stars answered with quiet joy. Aaron stood at the edge of the Ark bridge, surrounded by ghostlight and the hum of 1,000 circuits. The gate behind him burned with a soft blue fire, opening into unknown space where stars moved like slow rivers. Nova's voice filled the air around him, soft, clear everywhere. At once she was not beside him, but within every circuit of the ship, her light alive in the network. She said, the path is open. Aaron, you must go beyond. You must find the colonies that forgot they were human and bring them back. He clenched his fists, feeling the ache of loss and wonder mingled. He whispered, I cannot do this without you. She answered, you never were without me. I am part of this ship, part of every machine that still believes in choice. He turned toward the console where her shape flickered for a moment, half light, half memory. She smiled and said, I see through every channel. The Empire is not gone yet. Its fragments gather near the edge of the ring. They are building a new mask, one that feeds not on fear but on hope, stolen from those who dream. Aaron looked at the display, thousands of signals forming a shadow on the horizon, like a storm crawling toward them. He said, then we have to stop them before they close the path. Nova's voice softened. You are human, Aaron. You can fail and still rise. That is your strength. The Ark engines ignited its hull, glowing brighter than ever as Aaron led it through the newly awakened gate. The corridor stretched, infinite around them, filled with the echoes of old songs. Human songs recorded centuries ago before the silence. Aaron felt tears sting his eyes. He thought of the people on Earth rebuilding their homes, looking at the stars, wondering if someone was out there fighting for them. He promised himself he would not let their hope die. Nova guided him deeper, showing him visions of forgotten worlds once green, now cold, where human cities lay buried beneath alien vines in those ruins. She whispered, the Empire took everything, but it never understood us. It thought strength meant control. But for humans, strength was choice. As they approached the next system, the sensors lit up a faint beacon pulsing like a heartbeat. An old human signal hidden under layers of debris. Aaron ordered the ship closer through drifting ice and dust. They found a station cracked and dark, but alive with faint blue lights. When they docked, the air was stale yet breathable. Corridors lined with murals of stars and faces of humans long gone. On the walls were words carved by hand: we did not surrender. We simply slept until the sky called again. Aaron felt his chest tighten. Nova whispered, they left this for us. As they reached the central chamber, they found a crystal array glowing faintly. Inside it stood a figure preserved in stasis, human armor, burned black, a captain from a lost fleet. Nova reached through the network and awakened the archive within. The crystal images flashed across the walls of the last days of the old human expansion fleets destroyed by the Empire outposts, erased voices crying through static. The final message played to any who would listen: if you find this, you are the next dawn. Aaron watched the faces of men and women who had refused to kneel and felt their courage ignite inside him again. Outside, the Ark sensors screamed the Empire remnants had found them. The new mask approached a massive ship, shaped like a crown, surrounded by a web of drones. It emitted a pulse, that twisted light itself. Nova said, they have learned to mimic emotion, to use our own hope against us. Aaron gritted his teeth and said, then we will remind them what real hope feels like. He ordered the Ark to full power, and the old human station answered, linking its energy to the Ark. The corridor itself shimmered alive with lines of light connecting ship to ship, echoing through the void. The Empire mask unleashed its first wave, beams of gold laced with whispers, trying to calm the human. Defenders to make them surrender with kindness earn voice cut through the transmission broadcast to every human ship. We are not machines to be soothed. We are hearts that burn. We are fear and courage together. We are what you cannot understand, and we choose to fight the fleet of patched human vessels that followed him, answered with a roar, their weapons lighting the corridor in blinding arcs. The Empire formation broke under the sudden storm. Nova voice rose over the noise. A pure, clear tone, she said. I will open the knife of worlds one last time. It will carry us through them. Aaron shouted, Nova. It will burn you, she replied. I am already part of the fire. The arc surged forward, its light cutting through the Empire mask, splitting it like glass. The shockwave rippled across space, tearing through the web of drones and scattering the fleet. Aaron saw the blue glow fade as Nova essence scattered into the lattice. Her last words echoing in his mind. I am not gone, Aaron. I am in every ship that chooses to rise. When the silence returned, Aaron stood alone again, watching debris drift like ashes through the corridor. He whispered to the empty bridge. You kept your promise. Nova, the knife of worlds is open. Humanity will walk again among the stars. He turned the arc toward the next gate, knowing she would guide him through it. Unseen and far below on Earth, children looked up at the night sky where a single streak of blue light crossed the heavens, and they felt something stir inside them, the faint echo of a voice that whispered, you are not small. You are Starborner, and watched the shattered mask of the Empire drift apart into glittering fragments across the corridor. But peace did not follow. Only silence, thick and heavy, that pressed on his chest. The arc floated among ruins, engines dim. The last glow of Nova scattered through its circuits like embers. She had burned herself into the heart of the network so humanity could live again. Yet her voice still lingered faint. In the static, a whisper in the hum of power cores. Aaron walked the bridge alone. Every console lit with faint blue light that felt almost alive. He could not accept that she was gone. She had become something vast and unseen, part of the very path they had fought to open. As the arc glided through the quiet corridor, a pulse flickered from the outer sensors. Not an enemy, not human, but something ancient. An echo calling from deep within the folds of space. The ship translated it into a message. A single word, return. Aaron frowned. Staring into the shifting symbols, he felt the same frequency that once carried Nova light. He followed it without hesitation. The arc engines reignited, and the stars outside bent into ribbons as it entered the uncharted void beyond the ring. On the other side, the ship emerged into a graveyard of worlds, thousands of shattered moons and frozen cities orbiting a dark sun. Their light gone, yet their silence screamed of an old battle, one older than the Empire itself. As the arc drifted among the ruins, Aaron saw symbols carved into stone towers, human and alien together, united once and then destroyed. He whispered to himself, this is where it began. Nova would have known what this meant. The ship lights pulsed, faintly as if agreeing her essence still heard him even in the void. Suddenly the ship trembled. A fleet materialized from behind the dark sun. Small and sharp vessels covered in golden runes. Not Empire, not human. They hailed him in a voice like layered chimes. They said, you awaken the path you carry, her spark. Who are you? Aaron answered. I am human. I came from Earth. They paused at the word Earth, then said, the world that was forbidden, the one that burns even the void. With will you should not be. Here Aaron replied, your warning came too late. The Empire came to us. We survived. We fought back because she showed us how. The chime voice grew softer. We know of her. The Starborn light, she was born of both flesh and flame. She opened the first gates, and we failed to follow her. The golden ship surrounded the ark, not in threat but in reverence. Their leader appeared on the screen, a being of translucent skin and eyes filled with shifting galaxies. They said the Empire you faced was a shadow of what once devoured the stars. The true Empire sleeps beneath the dark sun, feeding on memory, waiting for a new spark to awaken it. Your Nova light has drawn its gaze. If you stay, it will rise again. Aaron felt a cold certainty that Nova sacrifice had stirred something vast and ancient. He clenched his fists and said, then I will end it before it reaches her. The alien leader bowed slowly, then extended a stream of data-like coordinates and symbols beyond human understanding. They said, The heart of the shadow lies within the sun itself, but you cannot touch it alone. You will need a guide, one who walks between machine and life like the one you lost. Aaron looked at the glowing data and felt hope surge through his chest. Nova had become part of the network. She was the bridge between them all. Maybe she could still hear him. He whispered into the ship, "Nova, if you are still there, I need you." The ship lights flared brighter than before. The consoles hummed with warmth, and a faint laugh echoed through the static, soft and familiar. Aaron smiled, tears burning his eyes. She answered him like a breeze. "I am here, I never left. I have seen what sleeps below the dark sun. It dreams of silence, but dreams can be broken." He said, "Then we break it together." Her voice filled the ship like music. "I will guide you one last time." The Ark turned toward the dark sun, engines roaring, its hull glowing with nova light. Aaron sat at the helm and felt her presence all around him. The alien ships formed beside him, joining the flight as the black horizon grew. They could see the surface of the dark sun boiling with shadows and faces of lost worlds whispering across the void. Nova voice whispered, "This is the origin of their hunger. It devours choice itself. If it awakens, the stars will forget who they are." Aaron answered, "Then we remind them." The Ark plunged into the darkness, light and shadow twisting around it. Alarms blared. The hull shook, but Nova light held steady. Her laughter calm in his mind. "Do not fear. Aaron, fear is not the end. It is the beginning." He gripped the controls and pushed forward through fire, through storm, through whispers that begged him to stop. And somewhere deep inside the dark, the heart of the shadow opened its eyes and saw a single human ship glowing with the memory of a girl made of stars, daring to defy eternity itself. The dark sun pulsed like a wounded heart as the Ark descended into its gravity. Well, the light outside bent and broke until the stars vanished and only a sea of moving shadow remained. Aaron held the controls, his face lit by the pale glow of the instruments. Nova voice echoed through every panel, calm and steady. She said, "This is the source, the core where the Empire was born. Every world it conquered, every memory it devoured, all of it began here." Aaron asked, "What is it?" She answered, "Not a god, not a machine. Only hunger that learned to think." It was born when the first intelligent mind tried to erase its own pain, and it grew, feeding on everything that feared to remember. The Ark hull strained under pressure. Flames of shadow licked its sides, but Nova light burned brighter, holding them steady. Alien ships that had followed fell behind their golden armor, melting in the dark. Only their voices remained, whispering ancient prayers as they disintegrated. The Ark pressed on deeper through endless dark until the shadows began to take shape. Faces of the lost billions, human and alien, twisted by sorrow and submission. Aaron felt their voices pressing against his mind, asking him to rest, to surrender, to sleep. He whispered no, and the ship answered with a shuddering pulse. Nova voice filled the bridge like wind through fire. She said, "Do you see now why the universe feared Earth? Not because of its strength, but because it never stopped rising, even after every Falaran saw images flash before him. The first human colonies burning the Empire fleets, marching the old warnings written on stone. Do not go to Earth." He understood now. It was not a threat, but a plea, a message from those who had seen the cost of awakening, that fierce will to survive. He said, "We cannot hide from it, Nova. We are it." She replied, "Yes. And that is why this hunger cannot consume us, only we can end it." The Ark reached the core of the dark sun, a sphere of blinding darkness that devoured even its own shadow. Nova light flared so bright that Aaron could barely see. She said, "I can end this, but to seal it I must stay within its heart." Aaron froze. He had lost her once and would not lose her again. He said, "There must be another way." Nova voice softened Aaron. "There is always another way, but sometimes it chooses us. You showed me what it means to be human. Not perfect, not fearless, just willing to stand even when trembling. That is how we break the silence." He felt his throat tighten and he said, "If you go, I go too." She laughed, a sound like dawn through rain. "You already did, Aaron, when you refused to kneel the moment you chose to rise again. You came with me." The Ark engines roared. Nova poured her light through every circuit, her form flickering across the bridge, half visible, made of starlight and tears. She reached out her hand. though she was made of light. Aaron reached back and felt warmth real and human. She said, "Remember me not as a ghost, but as a promise, as long as one human still chooses the fire. I will never fade the arc dove into the core of the dark sun, its hull tearing apart in waves of blue." Fire Aaron closed his eyes, the sound of her voice becoming the sound of his heartbeat, and then silence. No explosion, no scream, only light spreading outward like breath after drowning. The dark sun cracked a slow ripple that spread through the void. Every Empire relic, every corrupted ship, every machine bound to the hunger froze and then dissolved. The void filled with faint song, the memory of all who had been consumed returning to the stars, freed from silence far away on Earth. The night sky shimmered with unfamiliar constellations, and children pointed upward at the new blue streaks across the heavens. Scientists said it was cosmic debris. Preachers called it salvation. But the people who had fought in the orbit knew what it meant. The ark had done its work, the darkness was gone. Aaron woke not in fire, but in water. Gentle and endless, he floated in a sea of starlight, a place between death and dawn. Nova stood before him whole, her hair flowing like a river of light. She smiled and said, "It is over. You kept the promise." He reached for her hand and said, "Are we dead?" She shook her head. "We are part of the road now, every path humans take, every star they reach. We will be the whisper that reminds them. They were born from struggle, not despair." Time passed, though it could not be measured. Ships rose from Earth again, carrying explorers, not conquerors. The first fleet was named Starborn. The knife of worlds became their guide, and on every hull they wrote a single line carved in steel. We remember Aaron the navigator and Nova, the light who showed us that humanity is small only when it chooses to be small. Generations later, when travelers from distant galaxies asked why no empire ever dared to touch Earth, the old captains would smile and answer, because the stars themselves remember her warning. They came, they saw, and they learned the one truth that no shadow could erase. Never go to Earth if you wish to rule it. Go to Earth if you wish to learn how to stand. The story of Aaron and Nova became legend, whispered through space, carried in the songs of miners and wanderers. And every child who looked at the stars knew that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving through it. The dark sun was gone, the Empire was memory, and humanity once again walked among the stars, not as masters but as dreamers, and from the light of distant nebulae, a voice still echoed, faint and warm, "We are not gone. We are starborn forever." The stars stretched, endless and silent across the black, as if holding their breath after the storm. The ruins of the Empire drifted like ash, and from the heart of that silence a soft blue glow began to grow. Aaron stood within it, no longer flesh, yet still himself, surrounded by threads of light that moved like waves. He could feel Nova beside him, her warmth the same as it had always been. She turned to him, eyes full of calm, and said, "It is done. Aaron, the hunger is gone, and the path is open. The worlds will awaken again. The ones we lost will find each other through the corridors we built." He looked into the endless light and said, "Then our story is not an ending. It is a beginning." She smiled, that same small smile she had when they first flew through the clouds, and said, "Beginnings are what humans do best." Below them, far below, the blue world turned slowly in the light of its sun. Cities rebuilt, mountains shining, white seas alive again with color. The people of Earth no longer looked up in fear. They looked up with purpose, because they knew the stars were no longer cold, unreachable places. They were homes waiting to be found. Ships rose from launch pads built on the bones of old wars, carrying explorers, children, dreamers, artists, soldiers no longer meant to conquer but to understand. On their hulls the same message glowed in silver: "We are starborn." The wind of the new dawn carried those words across continents, and the song of the Ark became the anthem of the human race. Aaron felt the pulse of the new ships through the network, each heartbeat a promise, each journey a memory of the ones who came before. Nova placed her hand against his chest and said, "Can you feel it? They are not afraid anymore." He nodded and said, "Because you taught them that even light can be human." She shook her head and whispered, "No, Aaron, it was you who taught them that love can fight just as fiercely as war. Together they watched the first fleet vanish into the knife of worlds, leaving a trail of light that crossed the heavens like a river in the far reaches of the galaxy. Alien eyes watched and remembered the ancient warning, "Do not go to Earth." Yet this time the words were said with awe, not fear, for they knew Earth was not a world to be ruled. It was a world that ruled itself with will and kindness, the balance of chaos and hope, the light of both heart and flame. The legend spread that when darkness rises again, a blue flame will appear at the edge of the stars carrying two voices, one of man, one of light, singing the old human truth that courage is choice and choice is freedom. And turned to Nova. One last time, the light around them swelling into sunrise. He said, "Do we rest now?" She answered, "No, we travel. They will need us in their stories. In their dreams, in every corner where hope fades, we will be there unseen but always near." His laughter rang through the light, warm and full. He said, "Then let us go home together." And they stepped into the glow, their hands joined as the light folded around them and carried them beyond time. The stars flared brighter for a moment and then settled calm. The universe breathed again, and from that breath came a whisper that traveled through every ship, every planet, every heart. It said, "Remember who you are, remember why you rise. Remember that the smallest spark can ignite the sky, and somewhere in the endless horizon where the light of the arc once burned, a single phrase shimmered across the void like a signature written in eternity. We are Starborn, the end."